and provide for their families. So we're going to jump right in here. We've got several questions that people have asked us, and obviously fatherhood is a very big subject, in which I've been saying over and over. We live in the most fatherless generation in history. I actually wrote this book. I'm sure you probably know it if you're following us at all. Uprising, the epic battle for the most fatherless generation in history. So let's jump right in. What do you mean when you say fathers protect, promote, and provide? And I think this is maybe the lost art of fatherhood begins right here, in that many times our fathers have not protected us. What do I mean by protect? I obviously mean physically protect. Like if someone breaks into my home, I should be the first one to that window, that front door, wherever that perpetrator comes in. Jesus talked about the strong man wouldn't allow his house to be broken into if he knew when the thief was coming. So I think it's important that we realize that we as men, as fathers, that we are the protector of our home. Like we are the first line of defense. And even in the word cultivate and keep, the word keep in the garden, where Adam was put in the garden to cultivate and to keep it, the word keep there is rooted in the word protect. He's actually the protector of the garden. We're the protectors of the garden. And it doesn't mean mothers aren't, by the way, because moms can be, we got the whole mother bear syndrome. Like you don't want to mess with the mother bear. You don't want to poke the mother bear, for sure. But the father should be the first line of defense for their families. But I also want to open another door and say this, is that fathers are not just the first line of defense in the protection of their families physically, but they are also the first line of defense to protect their families spiritually. And there are things that we do that open the door to our children fighting a battle that they were never designed to fight. For example, when we open the door to porn in our life as fathers, we don't just open it to ourselves. We're actually, if you think about us as a wall around our family, we just unlocked a door that should have never been unlocked. And that demonic activity doesn't just access us, it has access to our entire family. The third thing I'll say with reference to protecting our family is we help vet who has access to our children and who has access to our teenagers. And I know that this is maybe not going to be a popular subject, but I think that when it comes to dating, when it comes to our children involved in any kind of relationship that could turn romantic, that as fathers, we should be involved in those relationships. We should be the interviewer of the potential the potential boyfriend who could be the potential perpetrator. I remember this story. I'll tell you quickly. My youngest daughter, Shannon, she wanted to date this guy who was just out of juvenile hall and was living in a group home, down the street from us, about a mile from us, actually. And I'll just call him Henry. And she's like, Dad, I want to date Henry. He's a Christian. And I'm like, Henry, I've heard about Henry. Like Henry is, he's out of juvenile hall, which is fine. But if Henry's a Christian, he's a very new Christian. And I hope that he's not the kind of Christian who becomes a Christian so he can date the beautiful Christian girls that are around. So anyway, after around and around with my daughter, I said, fine. He has to come meet me first. And he did. He came to meet me. And I'll never forget it. My daughter was quite nervous. And she said, I'll bring him to home group, because we had a home group in our house. So he comes to home group and he's like, Mr. Vallotton, goes to shake my hand. And I grab his hand and give him a little squeeze. And I hang on to his hand and I say, I understand you want to date my daughter. And he's like, yes, sir. Now I still have his hand and I'm squeezing a little tighter. And I say, I just want you to know that if you touch my daughter, I will break both your arms. And he's like laughing. I said, no, I mean, I will break both your arms. Well, he only had one date with my daughter and dated another girl. Within 6 months, that girl was pregnant. So I know that may seem a little extreme to some of you, but I'm like, in my mind, I made it really clear that this father is actually going to be knowing what you're doing. By the way, I said to him, I will know what you're doing with my daughter. I do not even want you to hold her hand. Do you understand me? He's like, yes, sir. I just wanted to make sure that he knew that I was watching. So we protect, we promote. Promoting mean that, Proverbs says, if you train up a child in the way they should go, when they're old, they won't depart from it. Promoting, in my mind, is being really close enough to your kids to have a deep sense of their divine destiny and opening up avenues for that divine destiny to happen. For example, if my daughter wants to be, I don't know, let's say she wants to be a concert pianist, or she wants to be an artist, or she wants to be a teacher. Well, one of the things I do is, beyond the fact that I'm looking towards education for that role, is I'm introducing her to people that I trust, that love God, that are in that role. So I'm introducing her to potential mentors, people that she can look to. You can't become what you haven't seen or heard. So it's important that our kids are exposed to people who love God, who are passionate about God, who are doing the thing that they think they want to do. And that maybe can even open the door to some kind of exposure to that kind of position, to see if that's something they really do want to do. But I think that we open the door of favor to those people to help promote them. And then, of course, we encourage them. We help educate them. Maybe my daughter wants to be a concert pianist. I'm probably paying for lessons. I'm probably thinking about how to get a piano. Those are the kind of things I'm thinking. And by the way, so much of who our children become have to do with our DNA. Think about it. When you get married, you take on, most of the time, the husband's last name. Your actual gender is determined by the sperm of the man, not the egg of the woman. So you're there is just right in creation that fathers are actually involved in purpose and destiny. And then the last one is they provide, and I think that there's a lost art of provision. I think that it's important for us to realize and and be a role model to the fact that fathers have the responsibility from God to be the provider. That does not mean that that moms can't work, or that they shouldn't work. Kathy and I have always worked together. Kathy's worked since my kids were little. She had an office at home, and later on, as the kids went to preschool and then off to school, she came on full time with us. I have a lot of staff that they moms who work full time for us. I just want to be clear. I think that there are traditional roles that say that can't happen. I see it happening very healthily in our culture, so I think it's great. But I don't think that you can advocate your role. I think that your wife may make more money, but you're still the provider. The ownership per provision still lies with you, and I don't think that changes. Someone can argue with me, but I'm not changing my opinion. Okay, here we go. The second question is, what's your experience as a new dad? When your first kid was born, was it easy to know what to do, or did you have to learn how to be a good father? Oh my gosh, this is a huge question, because I grew up in a completely dysfunctional home. My mother was pretty functional. My mother was, loving and kind and a great mom. But, my dad died when I was 3, so I had 2 dysfunctional fathers. I did not have a role model to look to, like, how do I what do I what does it mean to have this little monster around here? And what do I do? What's my role? So I would say, no, my process was really a process of learning. I have to be honest, and this may help some of the new fathers. When that first baby came into our life, I struggled with resentment, and I didn't know why. I finally went and asked, actually, it was my doctor, who was actually a family friend. And I talked to him and said, I don't know what's going on with me, but I feel so much resentment towards the daughter I love so dearly, my brand new infant daughter. And he's like, well, I bet your wife spends all of her time. I bet all the attention that was given to you when you were a couple has been diverted to that child. I'm like, true. I bet when your friends come over, they don't even come over and talk to you anymore. They go over and like, oh, look at the new baby. Yep. I bet all of the self-esteem that you got from your wife loving you and your friends honoring you is now being directed towards the person you were excited to be in the world. And I'm like, oh, that's so true. And I realized like the first several, probably year of my child's life was me adjusting to not being the center of attention and realizing that my sex life was going to change because the baby's up all night. Kathy is not going to want to be intimate very often. And sometimes it can be easy to shift the blame towards that child. It's not like consciously, it just happens. And that child interrupts a lot of really important times that you have with your wife and with your friends and with your family. And you have to make adjustments. So I think that was my first year. And then learning how to find a new place to get what I need, as far as like attention, as far as like favor from other places. I'm not talking about other women or anything like that. I'm just talking about the fact that I have to have a social group around me that that gives me some of the feedback and connection and sense of belonging that I was getting from one person. And now that one person has got a baby on her hand. So I think that was my first year, and then slowly learning how to be a dad was a big deal. What if I don't feel bonded to my kid? Is it too late to build an emotional connection? It's never too late to do anything, actually. And I'll tell you, bonding is sometimes spontaneous, but it's often more structured. For example, there are certain things that bond us or break us. Adversity bonds us or breaks us. When my son or daughter is going through adversity and I stand with them, there's a natural bond. Like, I don't have to say, I'm trying to bond. I say, if I stand with you in adversity, like I bond in battle, we bond in battle. So if my son or daughter is going through a battle and I'm there, if they're going through a sickness and I stay connected, those things will naturally bond us. There are also experiences that we go through together. For example, um, I think the Boy Scouts used to be a great place for boys to bond with men when they go out on events and they're out there, in the wilderness, learning and talking and doing life together. Those things all help us to bond. So I'd say stay close in adversity, be connected from the heart, and be present in conversations, and those would be the beginnings of bonding. And take an interest in what your kids are doing, even though you may not be interested, even though it may not be your interests. And then for how to be present father with so many responsibilities, I guess I just answered that. Like I had a conversation with the Lord some years ago now, and he said, "You're never present." And he said, "When you're with someone, you want to be with someone else, and when you're in a place, you want to be in another place." And then he said this to me. He said, "You miss so many moments of your life that I have planned for you to have amazing encounters, but you're actually not there." And it really changed my life. I'll say this, like, I've probably had 10 things in my life that actually changed my life. My trajectory. I mean, I have had things that have influenced my life, but I mean things that actually changed my life. And I think that prophetic word from the Lord really helped me in that I have worked hard, and let's say I was like 10% of the time I was in the moment, 10% of the time I was actually, present, and probably that's like 70% of the time now. So there's still a gap. There's still, I walk away sometimes from meetings just saying to myself, you really weren't listening, where you weren't even there. You weren't emotionally connected. So there's still room to grow in my life, but I can see some really great growth. And it's resulted in some really great things in my marriage, and some great things with my children, my grandchildren, and great things on my own team, where I'm telling myself, hey, you just came from home and you're really excited about this project, or you're worried about this thing, this financial thing for whatever, the Bethel, or for whatever, or you got this upcoming preach that you're gonna preach today at 5 o'clock, and it's 11 o'clock in the morning. You don't know what you're going to preach. And I'm in a meeting with my team, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to preach today? But I can't solve that right then anyway. So being in the moment is so very important, because I'm sometimes missing what's going on with me right now because I'm concerned about what's going to happen to me later. And so I want to just challenge you. Like, I do believe that this is This is a discipline. This is a discipline. And for the first probably 7, 8 months after I had that dream, you're never present. I would say to myself, okay, you're going to go in this room and you're going to look in the eyes of the people who are talking. You're going to connect. You're going to ask questions. You're going to feel their emotion. And whether it's my wife or my kids or my team or even my enemy, actually, and it's really, really helped. I think my team would say that I'm mostly present. I would say my wife did say this to me. She said about 8 months after that incident, she said, you know what? You feel like you're with me so much more. So I feel like it's a discipline. I'd like to have a magic pill that says, take this pill and do these, spin around 3 times and do a somersault and you'll be present. But that's not true. Um, how can fathers build strong relationships with their teenage children? Does it look different when they're younger? You absolutely. Like children go from dependent to independent, and maturity is interdependent. So I remember my son, who probably I had the closest bond to, Jason. We played basketball from the time he was probably 10 years old to the time he was like 16, down at the park, like every Saturday. And a whole bunch of boys were out there, young teenage boys, and I would play with them. And one Sunday we got in the car, I got my basketball clothes on, and I was getting ready to take us to the basketball court. And he looked over at me, he goes, "Dad, do you have to come?" I'm like, I didn't know what he meant at first. I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, it feels really awkward. Like you're the only dad on the court. And it feels like my dad's babysitting me." I'm like, "Oh no, I'll drop you off." And I dropped him off and came back and I laid on the bed and cried. And I realized that my boy was becoming a man and he wanted some independence. He wanted other boys to view him as a man. And then as time went on, he's our youngest. So I realized what happened with my daughters is that, they don't want to talk. They want to live in their bedroom or some other place. And then about every a month and a half or so, they want to have a conversation. It's usually like about 11 o'clock at night when I'm like completely exhausted. And, in the early days, I'm like, "Hey, we'll talk tomorrow." And then I realized tomorrow they're in a different mode. And so I can't even tell you how many times I've had conversations that go till 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I think the next day, like, we have a whole new relationship. And then the next day, that when they wake up in the morning and like the door's shut, they're living in another room. And as they get into their 20s and 30s, they cite those as my dad and I bonded. And I'm like, I felt bonded when I was with you, but I didn't feel bonded the next morning. But so relationships are so spontaneous with teenagers. When they want to have a relationship, that's when you need to have it. And that sometimes means I come in late for work. Sometimes it means I stay up late at night. Sometimes it means I change my plan for Saturday or Sunday. And we do whatever it is they want to do when that relational door is open. And I find it opens. It's like a flower, like it opens. It's like, "Dad, I need you. Mom, I want you." And then it closes. It's like, I got what I needed from you. And now I'm back to, I want to be my own man. I want to be my own. I'm a daughter. I want to be my own woman. And they need that space. They need space. And I could tell you from when our oldest started that, it freaked me out. Like, why is Jamie living in her bedroom? Like, what's going on? And I would go talk to older men and say, "My daughter, like 6 months ago started living in her bedroom." He's like, "Yeah, like she only comes out for meals." "Hmm. So what's the problem?" "I don't know what's the problem." And he explained to me that when kids are becoming adults, they go through this time of independence where they want space, and our goal isn't to try to smother them. Our goal isn't to like, "You need to come to get," and we did have rules like you had to be at dinner on Tuesdays and Thursdays because it got to a place where we wouldn't even be a family. So they had to honor the fact that we needed space with them and time with them. But after a while, I realized like we have a close relationship. You're just trying to become an adult, and you need that space. I think we have time for one more. Um, yeah, here's a hot topic. I think the sixth or seventh question. Do you have any input for how fathers should navigate co-parenting after divorce and separation? So I wish I could say I have no experience with this, but I have lots of experience with this. I have two kids that have gone through divorce, which is very traumatizing. Psychologists say that besides the death of a child, divorce is the most trauma, highest anxiety event that can happen in your life. And so it's really tough. Let me say a few things. First of all, your children should not be your pond to get to your spouse. If your children feel like they have to protect mom, dad left for another woman, let's say, or mom left for another man, and you want your children to to be not attached to dad because dad ran off with another woman, you're going to kill your kids doing that. You will kill your kids making them your attorney. You will kill your kids making them your best friend that is sticking up for you. And you need people like that in your life for sure, but it can't be your kids. The second thing I'll say is that your kids, let's say your husband, you say you're a woman and your husband left you. It could be either way. So let's say male or female. And now he has a girlfriend. Your kids need your permission as mom to have a relationship with her. Like they actually need you to say, "Hey, your dad has a girlfriend. It's fine to be kind to her," and vice versa, because otherwise your kids feel like they need to be the punisher of whoever is taking their mother's or their father's place. All of these things sound really noble for you if you're the spouse that was cheated on or you went through a divorce because of whatever. I mean, divorces are just painful. There's 10,000 things that we could just say. But your kids cannot be your protector. They cannot be your defender. They cannot be your attorney. And they cannot be the person who has to defend your nobility to their boyfriend or their girlfriend. And if they don't have permission from you to have a relationship with whoever your spouse is having a relationship with, and I'm not talking about, well, let me just say this, then that's going to put so much stress in them. This is why kids are on, all kinds of antidepressants. It's why kids are, transgendering, going through all kinds of depression. And secondly, I'll say this: if you're a good mom, no one's going to take your place. No woman, no girlfriend is going to take your place. And if you're a good dad, no man is going to take your place. And you putting pressure on your kids because you fear that someone's going to take your place will create more chance that someone will take your place. And you're going to put your kids in a terrible spot. So yes, love your kids, stay bonded. Um, you know, uh, I know this is not going to be a popular thought, but sometimes during divorce, husband or dad or mom move away. So like, yeah, I see my kids every 3 months. I'm sorry, you need to sacrifice your job for your children. Like it's not your children's fault that you got divorced. They still need you on a regular basis. They need you close. They need you in the same geographic area. They need to know they can get to you quickly. They need you to answer the phone. I mean, these things sound, uh, in our day, they sound like so like, wow, that's a lot of pressure. It's like, yeah, you were part of the divorce. You may have not wanted it, but you are. And the greatest victims of any divorce are your children. And they need to know that they are loved, they are cared for. You're there for them. You're there for their games. And work is not nearly as important. Career, like nothing takes the place of your children, and they need to know that. Well, hey, thanks so much. Lots of people loving what we're doing. I want to pray right now. Holy Spirit, this is a huge transition for a lot of people, what they're hearing today. This is not the culture we live in in modern day, I was going to say America, but in around the globe. And so we pray, God, that you would give us strength, wisdom, perseverance, and give us mentors who can walk us through these kind of transitions so that we can be good dads and good moms, we can be good parents, and we can be good sons and daughters to good mothers and fathers. And I just pray, God, your grace and your protection over us in Jesus' name. Amen. Look forward to seeing you next week, where we're going to change subjects. And hey, please write your questions in. We'll still do our best to answer these questions. I want to tell you that a lot of what I said today, almost all of what I said, and a ton more, is in this book, Uprising. It's probably a really small investment for most of you that can actually use this work. And by the way, if you need it to be donated, let us know. Just put it in the chat that you absolutely cannot afford this book, and we'll gladly send it to you. Love you. Bye now.